Whiskey Graham. Hey, Scott.
How's it going?
Good, man. How you doing tonight?
Doing well.
Good deal.
Enjoying the quarantine.
Yeah, you're right about that. I'm doing the same, man. I'm doing the same. Oh, so all the way from Albuquerque, New Mexico, right?
Yes, sir. Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're still busily distilling, working on some new batches. Apparently, distilleries are still considered essential businesses, so we've been making hand sanitizer and making a little whiskey in between that. So
that's so cool. So for everybody who just joined, we've got Taylor Garrett whiskey on tonight, and with me is going to be Scott Fuel. Correct? Is that how you spell your last name?
It's Fuel. That's it. You're all right, like gasoline.
Yeah, I saw I think your wife's Instagram says fuel is in diesel fuel.
That's right.
And so I was like, hey, at least I can get that right. But so we've got Scott on, and Scott is distiller and founder of Whiskey Garrett, of Taylor Garrett whiskey. And Scott, tell us, how long have you been doing this for?
Well, I've been distilling maybe. I don't know if I should go on record here, but I've been distilling for about 4 years.
Okay.
And a lot of that might or might not have been out of my garage. So you have to practice the art and learn the art somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've been legitimately distilling now since June. And I'm working with some partners here in Albuquerque, Vara Winery and Distillery. And we are working together to produce Taylor Garrett. And I'm working with them to produce some brandies and a couple of rums that we'll roll out pretty soon. But Taylor Garrett is my baby.
That's really cool. So how did you come up with the name Taylor Garrett? Tell us about that.
Yeah, Taylor Garrett. I'm kind of a late starter, so I've got 2 young kids. I've got a 4-year-old little boy. His name is Tyson Garrett, and a 6-year-old little boy and a 4-year-old little girl, and her name is Brooke Taylor. So it is their names.
Very cool, very creative.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So no great Southern genteel history or anything there. It's just my kid's middle name.
Well, it keeps people wondering. You know, everybody likes a story, so that's really cool. That's really neat.
Yeah, it sounds kind of cool too. So.
Yeah, and the bottle's really cool and catchy. I mean, it's like, so you're a pilot by current profession, right? And so that's the first thing I thought of. I thought of a fighter jet or the streaks that go through the sky when I saw the logo on the bottom. I was like, that's really cool.
Yep. So that's exactly right. I am a pilot. I was a naval aviator, and now I fly for a major commercial airline.
Okay.
And the whole design element is to tell that story of the accelerated tradition, because we do use kind of an unorthodox way to age our whiskey. And so the formation represents family and shows acceleration and speed. So it kind of ties the whole story together.
Very cool. Very cool. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about the process and what makes it accelerated and how you do that? Is there any trade secrets you can share with us?
Well, there's some trade secrets that I can't share with you, but there are some there are some basics that I can share.
Okay.
So we are grain to bottle. So everything we do with the Taylor Garrett, we control. We use some locally sourced grains and some grains out of Colorado, so it's all real close to Albuquerque here.
Okay.
And we basically do all of our fermentation, all of our distillation in-house, so we really control the quality of the spirit that goes into the bottle and into the ager. And the ager itself uses basically physical processes to duplicate what's happening in a barrel. And we also control that process. So we mill our own wood, cut our own staves, toast those staves to a particular flavor profile, and then char them. And then they are put in the ager, increase that exposure ratio.
Right, like quarter casks or 30 gallons or something like that, right?
Exactly. By cutting down that size, you're cutting down the exposure ratio, so they can get exponentially faster aging times. We don't do that. We keep it at that same standard, about 53 gallons. So it's around 50 to 55 square inches per gallon. And
Gotcha.
we age at that exact same ratio.
Awesome.
So,
and tell everybody, I know you mentioned it's accelerated aged. How long is it aged?
Well, the bottle says 24 hours, and that is courtesy of our friends at the TTB. Because in order to call it a whiskey, it does have to sit in a barrel for 24 hours. So it does sit in a used neutral wood barrel for 24 hours before we age it. So it gets absolutely nothing out of that barrel. We put it into the ager, and it's all physical processes, so there's no chemical additives or coloration added or anything else. All of the extractions coming from the wood, and it all happens in about 6.5 to 7 days.
Okay. So you're getting a 6.5 to 7 day, about a week-old product. And just to give everybody an idea of the color, that's the color of it. I wish I had a white wall behind me, but it's a pretty dark. I mean, I compared it to some rye whiskeys I had in, and this is just a whiskey. It's not a rye. It's not a bourbon. But I compared it to some rye whiskeys because traditionally ryes have lighter colors. Not always, but sometimes they do. And I think I compared it to like a Wild Turkey rye, and it was just like a light yellow versus this dark amber color you can see here. So really impressive color you get for that young of a whiskey. Really. Yeah. And again, I think that's part of how we toast the staves. And then we char them to around an average of about a char level 3. And so we do get that charcoal. In fact, I've got a couple of staves here, probably not going to show up real well, but kind of gives you an idea of the stages of the staves themselves. So the one on the bottom is basically raw white oak. The one in the middle is toasted oak, and that's toasted to really kind of pull some of those vanilla and caramel flavors out of it. And then, of course, the top is the same typical char that we do on the stave itself after it's been toasted. The benefit of that, and the reason we get so much color out of it, is because those toastings happen over a long, slow period of time. That stave is toasted all the way through. And then when we char it, we get a temperature gradient across the stave that gives us those caramel and kind of toffee notes that you would get out of a higher temperature toast. And so that penetrates a little bit, but the caramel and the color is throughout that stave. So as it's in the ager and undergoing the process, it basically infuses all of that color through the course of that time. We get most of the color in about the first 3 days. Okay. After that, that's when the flavor profiles really start to develop. So in the first day, we're getting a buildup of what's called ethyl acetate. And it's kind of that, it's an acidification, and then the ethyl acetate forms, and then that is what's then converted and esterified into the flavors that we're looking for in the typical whiskeys. Right. So give me we've talked about this separately, but give everybody a reason. Why did you want to age a whiskey so quickly? What jumped out at you and made you think, this has to be done faster. This can be done faster with a good flavor profile. How did you come about thinking like that, and how did you I guess figure it out?
Well, the reason I think is pretty standard. We wanted to get to market with something a little bit faster than it sitting in a barrel for 4 to 5 years before we could actually introduce it to the public. But understanding a little bit about what I do on the aging profiles and the chemical processes that are happening in a barrel with esterification, I was reading an article, and there was believe it or not, a dermatology process that used that chemical reaction to release energy to treat a blemish. And it was basically a physical reaction with a cream that they had put on that had long-chain aldehydes and esters that are exactly what are being broken down into short-chain aldehydes and esters in whiskey and esterification. So I thought, I wonder if that process would work in whiskey. And I built a prototype to take advantage of some of those physical processes. Went through a couple of prototypes and figured out that it worked. I started with rum and worked real well with rum, and then moved on to full grain distillation and tested it on whiskey. So
very cool. That's awesome. That's so neat. You don't really hear about a lot of. I mean, you hear a lot of out of the box things, but that's really out of the box, right? You're taking something from a completely different industry and applying it to whiskey, and I would have never thought something like that would have worked. So it's really cool to see how it's come about.
Well, it was kind of dumb luck, and I just happened to be prepared with the knowledge when I was sitting in my doctor's office reading this article with nothing else to do. Thank God he didn't have a Reader's Digest, or I would have, read the jokes in that. So
yeah. Well, you may not be here as fast to market like you are today either.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool. For those just joining, I'm here with Scott Fuel, talking about Taylor Garrett whiskey. Scott is the founder and distiller of Taylor Garrett, and this is an accelerated aged whiskey. The bottle will say 24 hours, but it's actually aged 6 to 7 days. And it's really unique for something that's aged so quickly. I've never tried anything like it before, Scott. I don't know I can't remember if I've told you or not, but when I tried this batch 2 that you sent me, I get spice. I get like a baking spices a lot, and I get crisp apple on the nose. Okay. And in the back on the finish, and this may just be me. Maybe I had a lot of apples that day. I don't know, but I got like baked apple pie and baking spice on the back end, and it's just like, and that may be from the different char levels, like you explained with the staves you're using. Right. And whatnot, but it's that's what I got. I got the more of like a fruit and a baked apple pie. Is what it tasted like to me.
Yeah, I'm noticing some floral notes. What I pick up out of it, and we're all different in our palates and in our noses and what we pick up and what stands out to us. What really stands out to me in this one, a little vanilla caramel, but a lot of kind of a maple. On the nose is what I get out of it, and then I pick up that spice. I kind of attribute that to the staves themselves, but also to the rye. Our rye comes out of Colorado, and so I pick up some floral notes on the nose. Batch 1, we used a roasted corn, and it kind of left me a little bit flat. I think there were some issues there. It was a much more blocky, very segmented across the palate. I didn't really appreciate the finish as much. I think this one has a nice lingering finish.
Yeah, I think this finish kind of it kind of gives you that almost Kentucky hug going down, but it feels really nice. It doesn't like burn and just like it doesn't burn to burn. It actually has a nice hug to it.
Right.
And it's got a really nice, actually has a decent finish on with it. I can literally taste baked apple pie in the back of my palate going down right now. It's crazy.
Hey,
maybe that's the maple that I taste. And I just can't explain it the same way, but
right.
Yeah, and it it's funny you mentioned you can tell the spices in it. It almost drinks like a high rye bourbon in a sense, because you get that rye forward flavor right on the tip of your tongue as soon as you taste it. That's what I noticed too.
Yep, and that is definitely by design. It is a high rye bourbon mash bill. So we're at 65% corn, 25% rye with 10% malted barley. So there's definitely a little bit more of that rye characteristic to it as well.
Yeah, that's definitely more rye than a lot of people are using.
Yep, it is a little bit higher. But I like that rye spice, and I did send you a sample of the rye.
Yeah,
if you had a chance to play around with that anymore or not.
I've got about half of it left. I actually poured some because I wanted to drink some here with you tonight. I don't know if you got some in front of you or not. I'm going to drink some water just to cleanse my palate real quick.
Okay.
But I got the sample bottle of the rye. This is also. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention. The whiskey is also 95 proof.
Correct.
Here it is right here. And the rye is also 95 proof, correct?
It is.
Now, this isn't in production yet. This is just a sample, right? You don't have this out on the shelves yet, right?
We don't have that on the shelves.
Okay.
It is in production. That was a sample run that we did, and we do about 8 small batches. We've got 1,000 liter still. It's a 265 gallon Hoga still, and we will typically do 8 runs, and we'll do stripping runs on that Hoga still. And get basically the low wines out of that, and then we'll combine all of that into a single run on a 4-plate column. And so right now we're about 4 or 5 of those batches into the rye. As soon as we get the glass print it, then we should have that released. So we're looking at probably middle to end of May.
Oh, okay, very cool. Even with everything going on right now.
Yeah. It's with everything going on, we've pretty much run through everything. And we are, along with my partner, Svara, we're giving that out to customers that come in for to-go orders. Svara has a good kitchen, and so they do a lot of takeout. And it's surprising how much whiskey we're selling in to-go bags. So that's kind of
I bet.
But we created a bunch of hand sanitizer that we're handing out to our customers, and then any first responders that come in, hospitals, whatever, we'll give them as much as we can so that they can use that for disinfection.
Very cool. Sounds like you guys are doing great things for not just the whiskey community, but the community at large at a time of need right now. So I'm sure that your local community appreciates that greatly.
Yeah, they do, and we're glad to do it.
That's awesome, man. It's really, just a sidebar real quick, with everything that's going on right now, every other post I see on Instagram seems to be something about sanitizer or a distillery that's just stepping up to make sanitizer for the community. And it's just really cool to see the whiskey community doing something good other than outside of what we've already done to really help in a time of need. So it's really cool that you're a part of that and that we can, cheers to that and be thankful for that.
Yep. Cheers to that.
Man.
To everybody out there. So
what do you have in your glass right now?
I've got the Taylor Garrett, and I see you like to drink it straight, as I recall.
Yeah.
I like mine over a clear cube.
Okay.
And if you're there and you've got a little bit of water, just put a couple of drops of water into it.
Let me try that.
And see what it does to the nose, because it really, really opens it up. And
so I'm gonna try it in the rye, because I just switched to the rye.
Okay, yeah, it'll definitely do that in the rye. I've got some rye around here somewhere, but I'd have to go off camera to find it.
That's okay, no problem, man. No problem at all. So are you guys I don't know much about whiskey being distilled in New Mexico. Are you the first, the only distillery in New Mexico? Use it through Vara, or catch me up?
Yeah, no, we are not. As a matter of fact, there are. Gosh, we're part of the whiskey or the Distillers Guild here, and there's probably, I want to say 7 or 8 that are active right now. The pioneer is a guy named Cullen Keegan, Santa Fe Spirits, and he does some excellent work. The problem in New Mexico, though, of course, is it's a dry environment, and so he's doing a single malt out of a mesquite smoked barley.
Oh, wow.
He ages it traditionally. He's losing about 40% of his product to evaporation out of those barrels.
Yeah. And how long is he aging his product for?
3 years.
Wow, yeah. You're going to lose so much. The yield's going to be so little.
It is a lot. It's a lot to be going to the Angels. But he does excellent work. We've got several other local distilleries that are doing some nice work in white, white liquors. The whiskeys, actually, Hollow Spirit's got a bourbon out that they just released that's not bad. And then we've got Tractor Brewing. It's called Troubled Minds. Their distilling arm of the brewery there is doing a really nice whiskey. So
very cool. I'll have to check them out too. I've never heard of them before, so I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, give them a shot. We've got a really strong brewing community here, and so I think that has kind of paved the way for distillers. And we formed a guild so that we make sure we keep that same cooperative, distilling community effort that they have amongst the brewers. And
that's neat.
Yeah, established that early. I know there's been some problems in Texas with distilleries not really liking each other.
What are you talking about?
we don't need that in New Mexico. So
yeah. So are you? Is there potential there could be something collaborative between all distilleries in New Mexico, like a? I don't know if you've heard. There's in Chicago. There's one called, I think it's called the King's Collection. It's 4 distilleries that have actually collaborated together and made a bourbon or a whiskey. I can't remember what they made.
Right.
That's really neat. I didn't know if that was something that you guys had on your plate, in the future, or if that was a thought.
It's always a potential. The guild here is relatively young,
Okay.
And so, everybody's kind of getting to know each other. But yeah, that is certainly something that's a potential. Right now, I'm just in collaboration with Vara to do the stuff. We and essentially, besides the brandies, which I have a part in distilling, they're introducing a rum that's pretty much my rum recipe. It was the first one I did, but we felt like introducing that under Vara's label would probably be a better play. But we do have a collaborative rum finish rye that we're going to do. And we've done some basic experiments with that, and it's a killer. It is really, really good.
So with with those finished whiskeys, are you doing are you still doing the traditional 6 to 7 days, and then you're putting it in an X rum or X wine barrel for how long?
We are.
Okay.
In fact, I've got some Taylor Garrett that is sitting in an Oloroso sherry barrel right now. We put it in a barrel.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So we're gonna start pulling out of that at about 2 months and see how it goes. But I anticipate that'll be about a 3 to 4 month finish, and it should be really nice. So we do that. We're also starting a Solera program with the rum and the rye, so that'll be a more traditionally aged product, and then we'll do finishes with that as well. So the neat thing about the aging is we can play with all kinds of cool combinations. We can take an already aged brandy that's just at the minimum 2 years. We can put it in the ager, throw some more time on it, and see how that turns out. We can do different woods, things that people don't usually traditionally use for cooperage. A lot of pecan grown here in New Mexico, so we can use some traditional pecan and see what that does to the flavor profiles. The neat thing with that is we can run an experiment and have a result in about 7 days and decide whether or not that's something that we want to pursue. So it's kind of exciting.
You can fail fast.
Yeah, that's right. You either fail fast or succeed fast.
Yeah,
and then when we come out, when we come up with cool combinations, then we'll do special releases of those. And
that's cool.
Just small batch, but just kind of experimental, weird stuff that people can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, like distillery releases or something like that too.
Sure.
Would so being at 95 proof, are you thinking you're going to do any releases at 100 or with being only 6 or 7 days? Obviously, you can't do a bottled and bond, but would you do anything a little bit higher, like a cask strength, or is any of that on the profile for later on down the road?
Oh, absolutely. I'd really love to do the cask strength. We've got some rums at cask strength, and I always hold a little bit back for myself, and
smart man.
I put it in the cask at 62.5%, so 125 proof.
So it's going right in at barrel entry proof.
Absolutely. So I don't know that I would put anything in, or that I'd bottle anything necessarily between the 95 and the cask strength, but we'll definitely look at doing some releases of the cask strength.
Very cool. That'd be interesting to try. Yeah, that'd be really interesting to try. So here's another question. So you said you enter your whiskey into at barrel entry proof. So you do it at the very maximum, right? At 125.
Absolutely.
With it being a drier and a hotter climate, typically in New Mexico, probably especially this time of year, right? Do you find that your dump proof is higher than 125, or is it staying pretty consistent because the aging process is so quick?
Well, the aging process is quick, but it's also a closed process.
Okay.
So
explain that.
So, as of course, most people would think a barrel is a closed barrel, but there is a lot of interaction happening with that barrel. There's oxygen getting in that actually helps in that early oxidative process, and as a consequence, you have evaporation. And so, you're losing liquid out of that barrel. We don't see any barrel loss at all. So if we put 100 gallons into the ager, we pull a little less than 100 gallons out because what's left is just soaked into the wood.
Right.
Yeah, there's virtually zero product loss. So it pulls out right at about the same proof that we put it in. I might see,
Okay.
0.1, 0.2 variation in either direction, and I can't really explain why it's going down, but
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it could just be measuring error, but for the most part, it stays very consistent.
That's cool. It'll be interesting to see what your finished whiskeys will do in the like the X wine, X rum casks, so on and so forth. To see because if they're going to sit 2, 3, 4 months, they may rise, they may lower depending on that time variance and that maybe that longer exposure to the environment.
Yeah, absolutely, and we fully expect that because that obviously is more traditional aging,
right? Right.
Even though over a short period of time, but like I said, with what we've seen with Santa Fe Spirits and their loss over the course of about 3 years, it's significant. So we'll expect to see a little loss, and we're also going to keep it topped off as well. So we've got product set aside, and we'll check it every month, and we'll kind of top it off a little bit here and there.
Gotcha.
But, I expect to see some change.
That's cool. So I know that you guys are kind of like the first ones to really be doing, or one of the first ones to be doing this accelerated age process. Is there any thought to doing any traditional aging or like quarter cask or 30-gallon cask aging in smaller, maybe longer periods just to see what it does in those environments?
We will, and I think what we'll probably do with that, we're doing a lot of setups for Solera aging. And I don't know if you're familiar with Solera aging or not, but
yeah, I am a bit.
Just basically think of a pyramid of barrels, and you're kind of moving stuff down at the bottom and then moving stuff back. So any particular barrel isn't going to have any really old product, but there will be really old product in the barrel mixed with younger product. So it's kind of a neat process, and I think we may practice with that a little bit with some of the whiskeys. But as a matter of practice for production, as long as we're getting good results with what we're doing, I don't know that it makes a lot of economic sense to do that.
Sure, no, I get that.
On a larger scale, right? Mm-hmm. So we kind of lose our advantage if we do that. But I think the Solera holds a lot of possibilities to do some really cool stuff.
Well, that's awesome, man. It's really cool to hear what you guys are doing. Again, for those just tuning in, I've got Scott Fuel on with Taylor Garrett Whiskey. He was kind enough to send me a bottle of batch 1, batch 2, did a little side-by-side comparison, and we also have, I'm drinking now the rye. This is not experimental, it's just not production yet, but this is a sample of the rye. And, man, this has been so much fun. I'm really enjoying this. We're at just about 30 minutes, so we've got about another 30 minutes to go. But if you have to, I don't want to keep you if you have a busy evening. But do you have any questions for me or anything that you wanted to ask us or anybody in the audience right now? If you guys want to type in some questions, I'm sure myself or Scott will be glad to answer them.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions. So tell me a little bit more about Bourbon Alliance, and I know you've got a network of people around the country that are bourbon enthusiasts. And
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's kind of crazy how this happened. So I have a friend of mine who he plugged me back in, I think it was like early December. He said, "Hey, I'm sorry, my wife just joined. That's why I'm laughing." A friend of mine just plugged me, and he said, "Hey, would you be interested in joining a whiskey group? I know you love bourbon, I know you have rye, I know you know a lot about it. Would you ever consider it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not? We'll see where this goes." And a few of us are on, or I think they're still on there. And Kevin said, "Talk about distribution and where they are." Oh, okay. I'll share this, and then I'll let you answer some questions. But
okay.
But yeah, so we just, a few of us got together, we started talking, and over the last few months we said, it'd be really cool to start reaching out and talking with craft distilleries and kind of shedding light on these craft distilleries that either people aren't aware of or they know of but they can't get to, and trying to see if there's ways that we can bring that value to others in the whiskey community. So, individually we're all pretty small, we're 5,000 sub followers, but altogether we probably have about 25, 30,000 people we can reach. So with that, it really broadens our scope and who we can reach and what we can do, and it's just been a really fun platform to engage the whiskey community and hopefully bring value also. So that's pretty much our goal. So I hope that kind of gives you a 30 involved, and we're everywhere from the West Coast to the East Coast. Most of us are in the Southeast, East Coast area. We've got one in California. We've got one in Michigan, and the rest of us are in the Southeast, East Coast area.
Okay.
So
well,
let's see.
So I heard the question was about distribution.
Yeah. So Kevin said, talk about distribution and where are they?
Well, so right now we just entered into a distribution agreement with a two-state distributor. So they're favorite brands, and they do New Mexico as well as Texas. So we're starting with distribution across New Mexico. We're in several liquor stores here. Of course, the coronavirus has kind of slowed us down a little bit. One of the ways to really start establishing a beachhead is to win the bartenders, and obviously that's not happening right now. But we are doing pretty well, not only out of the winery and distillery, but out of the local distribution spots. We're in a few of the local liquor stores. We've also opened a relationship with Whole Foods in New Mexico, as well as Total Wine, which is one of the larger liquor stores and distributors here.
That's great. And you guys are not a control state, right?
Well, I'm sorry?
You guys are not a control state, right?
No, we are not. We are not. And
that makes it a little easier.
It makes it a lot. Texas side of that, which I'd love to say, oh yeah, we're ready to conquer Texas, but I couldn't make enough product to conquer Texas just yet. So as we ramp up, establish our good reputation here in New Mexico, we'll start looking at some beachheads in Texas. I'm an El Paso boy, so that'll probably be the starting point in Texas and be our beachhead, and then we'll work our way east from there.
Very neat.
But we've also submitted to one of the distributors up in the Northwest, so Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and we've gotten some great feedback there. So hopefully, if we can meet their production demands, then we may be available in the Northwest as well, which would be really nice.
That's awesome.
Then our strategy is to work to neighboring states, Arizona and Colorado in particular. Once we get a good presence in Texas, get established in Colorado and Arizona, and then start moving from there. So we've got it planned, and things are going well.
That's so cool. Are you also, just to pinpoint off the distribution question, are you also looking at online distribution at all? Whether it's like a Cask Cartel or a Drizzly or something like that?
No, we're not. And that is something that we need to look into, because, we are getting a lot of interest from a lot of people around the country. So, that might be something that we can look into.
Let's have an offline conversation. I have a contact I can get you in touch with that could share some information. He's an online distributor that could probably help you out. Yeah. So we'll have an offline conversation about that. That'd be good.
Yeah. If it weren't for that pesky TTV, we'd just sell it whatever we want.
I know. Something about shipping alcohol in brown boxes across the country. I mean, all right.
I don't know.
So let's see. I'm going through some of the comments here. How about ordering online? Okay, we just talked about that, Kevin. I do have a few more questions that came in.
Sure.
That I just answered that. Bourbon Man asked, what size Solera barrels are you planning to use?
Well, we've got different sizes. So we've got, what we'll do is we've got a ton of sherry barrels. We've got Oloroso, cream sherry, and Pedro Jimenez. So we've got the big butts, which are basically 500 liters. So they're 65, 70 gallons, and then we've got the 50 gallon, 53 gallons as well. So that's the size that we'll run those Soleras in.
Okay, very cool. Another question from Whiskipedia. Looking to do any wheated whiskeys?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm typically a rye whiskey guy, and I really like the spice. I love the rye, but believe it or not, New Mexico is a very weeded bourbon place, and so I'm certainly not going to ignore that portion of the market here. And once we build up a little stock in that, then weeded bourbon is one of the next ones on the agenda. So,
that's cool. Yeah, you got to pay homage to your state.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you got to make what the people like, right?
Exactly.
I had to make what I know how to make, and now I'll make what people like. But
yeah,
it is a big deal here. You know, we sell a lot of Maker's Mark here, and you know that's a nice weeded. Sell a lot of the Wellers.
Okay.
And so we definitely want to pay homage to that. I anticipate that we should release a weeded bourbon probably mid to late summer.
Okay. Wow. That's great. What about, what was I going to ask you next? Going off of that, are you going to play around with like any 4-grain recipes or more? I know like some people will take rye out and they'll introduce oat and wheat. And how you say have oat, wheat, corn, and barley, for example.
Yeah, there's. I don't have a lot of thought there anytime in the near future. What I would like to do though is some smoked grain American whiskeys.
Okay, it's like a single malt.
Yeah, well, not necessarily a single malt, but just using smoked grain in our mash bill. So I don't know of a whole lot of people. I think Balcones might have done a smoked corn whiskey.
Yeah, they've done one.
If I can figure out a way to do that with the materials that I'm using and turn out a quality product, I will. The thing I don't want to run into is what we ran into with batch 1, and that's caramelizing the sugar during that roasting process. It really does change the profile. So I've got a couple of prototypes designed for how to smoke, basically cold smoke these grains. And if I can perfect that and do a couple sample runs, then that'll be something we're looking at.
That's cool.
Something different.
Yeah. That sounds really interesting.
To those peaty Scotch drinkers, maybe give them something. It won't be anywhere near. I'm not a big peat guy, so it won't be anything along that line, but maybe more along the lines of mezcal type smoke.
Okay.
Give it a nice, nice smoky profile to the whiskey.
Yeah. Have you ever had Broken Barrel's Isle of Peat by any chance? So if you want to try a bourbon drinker's Scotch, essentially, is what that is. And I'm not a big Scotch person. I don't like peat a lot, but Isle of Peat by Broken Barrel is very interesting. It's a very good expression, very unique expression by them. So if you can try some of that, maybe that'll give you some inspiration. I don't know.
No. Broken Barrel Isle of Peat.
Yeah, check it out. And they're out of California too. So
okay, great.
Yeah.
I will give it a shot.
Let's see. Kevin asked, just curious if you have any particular brands you like. So any favorites or any ones that you're just like, this is my staple, this is my go-to.
Oh, absolutely. Come on. I do like a lot of the Buffalo Trace, although I'm not a big Weller's guy. I do like Blanton's, but I've got to say, I think they the bottles I've found lately, they seem to be kind of rushing it a little bit. But typically, I really like Blanton's. My absolute, top of the line favorite is the George T. Stagg. Not the Stagg Jr., but the George T.
Right. Senior.
Yeah, exactly. If I can get on any allocation list and get that one, I will definitely, I'll grab it. So I've got a couple of bottles of that hiding around.
Very neat.
The one that I really like, another of my favorites along the rye, is that Angel's Envy rye. And it's that Caribbean cask finish. I just think it's always been good and consistently good. Even though it's a source bourbon, they do the finish in those barrels, and it's just fantastic.
Right.
Or source rye, but it is
source rye,
yeah. And then the other one that I like a lot is the Old Forester 1920.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
I think to kind of bring it back into the realm of stuff you can find, and it's readily available. I'd say that'd be one of my everydays.
Very cool. It's all so good. That's right. If you could, here's a question I've got. I'm going to piggyback off of that one too. If you could compare Taylor Garrett to one other particular brand, is there a certain profile that you think Taylor Garrett matches or is close to? Like if you were to do a side by side, it'd be really hard to pick them apart.
Honestly, Not really.
Okay.
I know what I was going for with the mash bill, and I know what I like to drink, but I think it's got a lot of unique characteristics on its own, and I'm comfortable with that. I like the fact that it's different and that people are going to drink it. Another example of one that I like a lot that kind of falls into that category is, and you're in Alabama, right? So
Yes, sir.
Clyde Mays.
Yeah. I love Clyde Mays.
Yeah, I love the Clyde Mays, especially that Clyde Mays Special Reserve. That one, to me, just kind of stands all on its own. It's not like anything else. It is something totally different. And so, if I get known as something a little totally different, but still has the characteristics that you're looking for, the smoothness and some of those flavor profiles that people are gonna enjoy, I'm good with that.
Hey, cheers to that, man. Can't ask for anything more, right?
That's right. Well,
good deal.
So, I like to say your favorite whiskey is the one you'll put in your glass, right?
Yeah, that or a free one. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. But the best whiskey in the world is the one you're going to drink every day, and that's really all that matters. So our palates are all different, our desires are all different, and that's what I love about it. There's so many different things out there, and it's just fun finding them all.
Yeah, well, that's cool, man. Well, hey, I want to thank you. I don't think we have any more questions. I think we expired everybody's unless someone's type something in. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time tonight. Last question here. Sorry, Kevin said, "What's the price point?" So, what's your whiskey currently going for? And what do you think you're going to put your rye at when it comes out?
The rye is really going to depend on what kind of production I get out of it. Price point on the Temper Garrett in the retail outlets, we're running anywhere between 47 and 49. And the rye, actually, we've had some pretty good results on what we're doing so far. So I think we should be able to keep that within just a couple of bucks on the higher end of that. If the yields are significantly lower, we may have to pop that up a little bit. But so you're drinking the rye now. What are your thoughts on the rye?
Yeah, so it's going to sound silly. It's very rye forward. It's very spicy. You get hit by that spice very immediately. It has a really nice finish. I think it's kind of a short finish. I don't think it's as long as the whiskey is, or the Tail Garrett whiskey is, which is the Tail Garrett rye. Right. But very drinkable. I think it would be really good in a cocktail also. Again, this is also a 95 proof, right? The rye is also the same proof point.
It is.
I think both of these actually would hold very well in a cocktail. I think they're both bold enough. Your whiskey is like a high rye bourbon, similarly in how it drinks. So I typically like a high rye bourbon or a high rye whiskey in general. So I think that both of them would hold up very well in a cocktail. They would shine well. They wouldn't get diluted very easily. So I enjoy the rye. Actually, I drank the rye and then I blended the whiskey with the rye to see how it came out, and it came out very bold, and I like that a lot about it.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, very good, man. Very good. Enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. So I want to say thank you for sending out. I got to try batch 1. I know we talked about that offline. Batch 2, enjoyed that. Like I said, I got apples, baked apple pie, and baking spices. So it's pretty pleasant on the palate, I think. The rye, the sample is so cool. So thankful I got to try that as well. So thank you very much for doing this. Thank you again. Shout out to everybody on the Bourbon Alliance, and thank you for sending product out to them as well. I know they all got to try batch 1. I'm going to try to get batch 2 out once the coronavirus kind of dies down, and hopefully they can get to try all that stuff as well, because I don't want to spread germs around. I don't want to be the cause of anything crazy. But yeah, so just huge shout out to the Bourbon Alliance and the platform that it gives us to be able to talk to distillers and craft distilleries. It's just a really cool opportunity, and so thank you very much, and thank you for trusting us to try your product and talk about it a little bit.
Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate the opportunity. Great talking with you. And
you as well.
We'll touch base again soon.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Hey, cheers. Have a good night.